I went to St. Alphonsus, and then later I went to Fortson.
You went to Fortson, and I went to Laurie High School when they would ship us in from Dearborn Heights as well.
Yeah, yeah. I have to tell you, too, that, my whole life has had psychic things happening. But I hooked up with this hypnotist recently. Actually, it's been about a year ago, and I've had CDs made specialized for me to increase my psychic ability. It is just phenomenal. It is phenomenal how much my husband has changed, how much love he is showing me, the kindness, the calmness in his own life. And now I start to see, if I meet someone, I'll see a flash of a film clip in their life, and that film clip will tell me whether or not there's somebody that I want to do business with or somebody I don't want to do business with, or if there's somebody that needs help. And it's really phenomenal. In fact, I think Coast to Coast has had her on before, Gail Glassner-Tversky.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is really, really something else. She's just one really cool lady. But it's my whole life is different. I see things in different perspectives now. It's just
it's magical.
Well, yeah, it is. It is very magical because all of a sudden your whole realm is different, and when you get on that universal consciousness, you're part of the world trying to do the right thing.
So true. Let's get your reaction. We'll get Nick's reaction. I almost forgot you were here, Nick.
Hey,
I was talking with Doreen about my high school days.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people experience exactly the same thing. And there was a good friend of mine. He was one of my mentors. Reho Michaela passed away a number of years ago. But he had this concept when people were the longer you were with someone, and people who've been in long relationships will identify with this. You start finishing each other's sentences and all of that, and people chalk it up to just being together. But on a subtle level, what he suggested was that your energy fields sort of come into resonance. They begin to equalize, and just because of the nature of the relationships, that becomes increasingly heightened as you maintain that relationship. And anyone who's been in long relationships can really identify with this, unless you're at each other's throat all the time, I suppose. But if you're in some general sense of harmony and in resonance, those fields equalize. And then when you think about the experiences, you're in a relaxed state. The guy is waited on you several times, and you feel some sense of identity, and you're not really focused on what they're saying, so you're a little bit out of focus, but you're perceiving the conversation. And I hear this more and more. In fact, it was one of the gifts of the Spirit in the biblical sense, this idea of interpretation of language. And I'd always wondered about what that was. And then experiencing it, and others who I've talked to experiencing it, it's not even like there's a translation going on. You just hear it in English. It's just very strange.
Aurora, Illinois. Tony, thank you for holding.
George Norrie, you are the man. I'd like to extend my love to you. I feel like there's coast to coast. You're talking about a universal consciousness, and I feel like that comes across when I listen to your radio program. Sometimes you guys would be talking about ghosts, and I'll get creeped out. Does that make sense?
They're hiding behind you when you're driving or something.
I was listening to the program. But anyway, I have always asked for godly gifts and wanted to be a little bit ESP or psychic. And after a while, it's just come around, and it's just natural to me. And I just want to put my finger on the fact that we have an ability to negotiate our own future, shape our own destiny, perhaps.
I think on a real fundamental level, when you think about the physics of the observer being able to impact whether something's a particle or a wave based upon the observer, not based upon the material or the wave. And, that tells you a lot about your fundamental sort of creative capacity as a human being. And I think all of us have this on some level. And we manifest it in how we create the reality around us on all levels. And I think we are approaching some change. And the last caller talked about using tapes or using hypnotherapy as a way to get into that altered state. And it absolutely does work. That is an effective method. You can do all kinds of things to take you into that super state of consciousness and then literally provide information to the brain that's more readily absorbed.
Tony, you there?
Yeah, one more thing, guys. You had mentioned that this is the reason why we're having problems in the world is because they refuse to admit that this is going on. Do you think that's true?
I think a lot of it, there's so many things going on. I mean, you look at disclosure projects of all kinds that keep coming up. These are, I think, some of the most important areas because we're dealing with consciousness and the way the brain actually functions, where disclosure, I think, is absolutely required. Personal privacy technologies, the ones that have been reported, have affected huge numbers of people, and yet we still don't have full accountability in these areas. And the mind, which has ultimately, it's about freeing the mind, not enslaving it. And I think that's where these technologies need to see the light of day, and more importantly, need to be advanced in directions that allow us to solve our problems, and perhaps even alter a great deal of the realities in terms of how we shape our futures. Because fear-based technology, fear-based approaches are not giving us anything constructive at this point in time.
Let's go out to your neck of the woods in Alaska. Doug, you're west of the Rockies. Hi, Doug.
Hi. Hey, I live in Southeast, and about 15 years ago, I was riding a ferry between Prince of Wales and Ketchikan. We went by Back Island, which is a nuclear sub-testing space. And I noticed, like, the northern lights hanging right over that site. Obviously, they were using HAARP. And I'm wondering, does that affect the locals?
It depends. You know, they can create an artificial light stimulation with HAARP, and their suggestion that, depending on how they're using it, you can return a signal back to the Earth in the ELF ranges, which would, in fact, have a physiological effect. The problem with where HAARP is situated is the population density is pretty light, and so to draw, clear statistical relationships is pretty difficult to do. And I don't think they've ever really taken a look, at that. The bioeffects of these systems generally fall within the guidelines of what's permissible, and so there's really not a lot of discussion, and it's because as we've sort of evolved technology, the guidelines for what's acceptable have not followed suit.
Okay, next up, it is Dawn in Omaha, Nebraska. Hi, Dawn.
Hey, how you doing?
Great, thanks.
I was going to ask the guest, do you think that television creates a kind of hypersensitivity of the mind with all of the flashing images and literally seeing so many things far away that we would not normally see?
It depends. Music is used, light is used, all kinds of things are used to create emotional responses when you're making film. I mean, that's part of the art of filmmaking. And if you think about whether it's the action movie, the horror film, or the romance, the evoking of emotion is what it's about. So you apply whatever techniques that you have available to you. And all of these, work. Think about sound as it's played on the soundtrack, behind the images. You think about how the images are framed, how the lighting is framed. And what we're talking about is maybe another level below that, where you literally manipulate the fields to have a very deliberate effect. In fact, in some of the gaming now that's being designed, instead of relying on questionnaires from the people that are, being used as sort of the test subjects for games to see what kind of responses you get, they now monitor the brain itself, so they know exactly whether you're hitting the pleasure centers or, what centers of the brain are being activated based on your real-time interaction with a game. So that even the games are being refined to have really powerful emotional impact on those that are playing them.
What is the flash list that you have available?
What we do with that is about once a month, if we're lecturing or there's new information that we're posting on the web, we try and get that out to folks. And it's, we don't share that list with anyone, but we use it to kind of keep people posted on what we're researching and some of the more important areas that we think people ought to be taking a look at. So we use that as sort of our communication methods, and people can sign up for free at earthpulse.com to get on that list.